The radio crackled with static at 3:47 hours, breaking the pre-dawn silence of forward operating base Resolute. Colonel Marcus Vanguard pressed the transmit button with the weight of desperation, his voice cutting through the interference that had plagued communications for the past 18 minutes. Any station, this is Resolute Actual. We have 12 Navy SEALs pinned down in grid November 7-4 Alpha. Heavy enemy contact, multiple casualties, immediate air support required. The silence that followed felt eternal, punctuated only by the distant rumble of artillery and the colonel's increasingly labored breathing. The SEAL team, call sign Trident 7, had been conducting a high-priority extraction mission in the mountainous terrain of eastern Afghanistan when Taliban forces had surrounded their position with overwhelming numbers. Master Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez had reported via encrypted satellite phone that they were running critically low on ammunition, with 2 operators seriously wounded and evacuation routes completely compromised. The enemy had positioned heavy machine guns on elevated ridges, creating a deadly crossfire that made any movement suicidal. Colonel Vanguard had already exhausted every available asset. The Apache helicopters were grounded due to a sandstorm that had rolled in unexpectedly from the northwest, reducing visibility to less than 50 meters. The AC-130 gunship that had been providing overwatch had been forced to return to base after taking heavy anti-aircraft fire, leaving Trident 7 completely exposed. Even the quick reaction force that had been scrambled 40 minutes earlier was now pinned down themselves, unable to advance through the narrow mountain passes without air cover. The radio hissed again, and Vanguard could hear the strain in Rodriguez's voice during their last transmission. "Resolute, this is Trident 7 Actual. We're down to our last magazines. Enemy forces are massing for what looks like a final assault. We need immediate extraction or close air support over." The urgency was unmistakable, and everyone in the operations center knew that time was running out. Vanguard had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and had never felt this helpless. The weather was clearing slightly, but conventional wisdom suggested that no pilot would risk flying in these conditions, especially with the sophisticated air defense systems the Taliban had recently acquired. The colonel stared at the tactical display showing Trident 7's position, surrounded by red hostile indicators that seemed to multiply with each passing minute. Then, cutting through the static like a blade through silk, a calm voice emerged from the chaos. The transmission was crystal clear, professional, and carried an undertone of quiet confidence that immediately commanded attention throughout the operations center. "Resolute Actual, this is Phantom Lead. I have your transmission and am currently inbound to your position with my wingman. What's your situation report over?" Colonel Vanguard felt his pulse quicken as he grabbed the radio handset. After 6 hours of radio silence from any available air assets, this unexpected response felt like divine intervention. He had no idea who Phantom Lead was or what aircraft they were flying, but at this moment, any pilot brave enough to fly in these conditions represented the only hope for 12 American warriors trapped behind enemy lines. "Phantom Lead, this is Resolute Actual," Vanguard replied, his voice steadying with the first glimmer of hope he'd felt in hours. "We have 12 SEALs surrounded and taking heavy fire at grid November 7-4 Alpha. Multiple casualties, ammunition running critical, and weather conditions are marginal at best. What's your aircraft type and estimated time of arrival over?" The operations center fell silent as everyone waited for the response that could determine whether Trident 7 would see another sunrise. The voice that came back was measured and professional, but there was something else there, a subtle steel that suggested this pilot had been in similar situations before. "Resolute Actual, Phantom Lead. Flying F-22 Raptor with A-10 Warthog wingman. Current weather is acceptable for operations. ETA to target area is 12 minutes. Request detailed enemy positions and friendly locations for immediate close air support over." Colonel Vanguard exchanged glances with his operations officer, Major Thompson, who had been tracking the developing situation on multiple screens throughout the night. Neither had expected an F-22 stealth fighter to be operating in their area of operations, especially not in partnership with an A-10 Thunderbolt. The combination was unusual but potentially devastating against ground targets. Phantom lead, enemy forces are positioned on ridgelands approximately 800 meters north and east of friendly position. Friendlies are marked with infrared strobes and are in a defensive perimeter approximately 50 meters in diameter. Be advised, enemy has shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles and heavy machine guns in elevated positions. Over. The response came immediately, without hesitation. Copy all, Resolute. Phantom lead has eyes on infrared strobes and is beginning attack run. Danger close authorization requested for maximum effectiveness. Over. Vanguard knew that danger close missions required extraordinary skill and precision. With friendly forces so near the target area, even the smallest miscalculation could result in catastrophic friendly fire casualties. The colonel looked around the operations center, seeing the same question in everyone's eyes. Who was this pilot willing to fly such a risky mission in marginal weather conditions? Phantom lead, you are cleared hot. Danger close authorized. Our people are counting on you. Over. Roger, Resolute. Phantom lead beginning attack run now. Tell your SEALs to keep their heads down. This is going to get loud. Over. Through his binoculars, positioned on the observation deck of the forward operating base, Colonel Vanguard could barely make out the distant flashes of gunfire in the mountains where Trident 7 was fighting for their lives. The weather was improving slightly, but visibility was still limited, making visual identification of aircraft nearly impossible. He strained to hear the distinctive sound of jet engines approaching, knowing that within minutes, the fate of 12 American warriors would be determined by the skill and courage of an unknown pilot. The radio crackled with Master Chief Rodriguez's voice, tight with tension but still professional. Resolute, Trident 7. We can hear jets approaching from the south. Enemy fire is intensifying. We're in our final defensive positions. Over. Colonel Vanguard gripped the radio handset tighter, knowing that he was about to witness either a miraculous rescue or a devastating tragedy. In his 22 years of military service, he had never felt the weight of command more heavily than he did at this moment, with American lives hanging in the balance and an unknown pilot racing through dangerous skis to reach them. The next few minutes would determine whether Trident 7 would be extracted safely or become another tragic statistic in America's longest war. In the cockpit of her F-22 Raptor, Major Evelyn Phoenix Reeves adjusted her night vision goggles and checked her weapons systems one final time. Flying at 28,000 feet above the Afghan mountains, she had been monitoring emergency frequencies when Colonel Vanguard's distress call had cut through the routine chatter of the nighttime communications network. Without hesitation, she had altered course toward the coordinates. Her wingman, Captain Jake "Hammer" Williams in his A-10 Thunderbolt, following her lead through the deteriorating weather conditions. Phoenix had logged over 2,000 combat flight hours across multiple deployments, but tonight felt different. The desperation in the colonel's voice had reminded her of another night, 3 years earlier, when her own brother's Marine unit had been surrounded in similar circumstances. That night, air support had arrived too late, and Staff Sergeant Michael Reeves had died along with 6 of his fellow Marines in a remote valley in Helmand Province. The memory fueled her determination as she began her descent toward the target area. Hammer Phoenix. Target area is approximately 4 clicks ahead. I'm seeing multiple muzzle flashes on the ridgelines. Friendlies should be marked with IR strobes in the valley below, she transmitted to her wingman over their secure tactical frequency. Copy, Phoenix. I have visual on the strobes. Looks like they're surrounded pretty tight. You want to make the first pass, Captain Williams responded. his A-10's slower speed and heavier armament making him ideal for close ground support once Phoenix had neutralized the primary threats. Affirm, Hammer. I'll take out the heavy weapons on the eastern ridge first, then you can clean up with the GAU-8. Keep your distance until I've cleared the SAM threat, Phoenix replied, her voice remaining calm despite the complexity of the mission ahead. She knew that shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles posed a significant threat to both aircraft, but her F-22 stealth capabilities and electronic countermeasures gave her the best chance of surviving the initial attack run. As she descended through 15,000 feet, Phoenix could see the tactical situation unfolding below through her advanced targeting systems. The Taliban forces had positioned themselves expertly, using the terrain to maximum advantage while maintaining interlocking fields of fire that kept the SEALs trapped in their defensive position. Heat signatures from multiple heavy weapons positions glowed bright on her infrared display, confirming the intelligence that Colonel Vanguard had provided over the radio. Resolute, Phantom Lead. I have visual on multiple enemy positions. Beginning attack run on Eastern Ridge heavy weapons. Recommend your people stay low and maintain current positions for the next 3 minutes. Over. Phoenix armed her AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles and selected her target priorities with the precision that had earned her recognition as one of the Air Force's most skilled combat pilots. The irony wasn't lost on her that many of her male counterparts had initially questioned her capabilities when she had first arrived at squadron assignments, but combat had a way of silencing doubters. Tonight, 12 American warriors were depending on her skills, and she had no intention of letting them down. Resolute, Phantom Lead is hot. Time on target in 30 seconds, she transmitted, beginning her attack dive toward the enemy positions. The first AIM-120 missile streaked from Phoenix's F-22 at precisely 3:59 hours. Its advanced guidance system locked onto the heat signature of a Taliban heavy machine gun position on the eastern ridge. The explosion illuminated the mountainside for several seconds, sending debris cascading down the rocky slopes. Before the sound of the first impact had faded, Phoenix had already launched her second missile, targeting a mortar position that had been dropping rounds dangerously close to Trident 7's defensive perimeter. The radio exploded with chatter as Master Chief Rodriguez's voice came through with barely contained excitement. Resolute, Trident 7. Direct hits on enemy positions. Eastern Ridge is neutralized. Enemy fire has decreased significantly. Colonel Vanguard felt a surge of relief wash over him as he watched the distant flashes of explosions in the mountains. Phantom Lead, Resolute Actual. Outstanding work. What's your next move? Over. Phoenix was already adjusting her position for a second attack run, this time focusing on the northern ridge, where additional enemy forces were repositioning to maintain their attack on the surrounded SEALs. Her situational awareness was heightened to an almost supernatural level, processing multiple data streams from her aircraft's sensors while maintaining constant communication with both ground forces and her wingman. Resolute, Phantom Lead. Northern Ridge next. Hammer, you're cleared hot on the remaining positions after my pass. Watch for secondary explosions from ammunition storage areas. Over. Captain Williams acknowledged and began his own attack approach, the distinctive silhouette of his A-10 Thunderbolt becoming visible against the lightning sky as dawn approached. The aircraft's massive GAU-8 Avenger cannon, capable of firing 3,900 rounds per minute of 30 depleted uranium shells, would devastate any remaining enemy positions once Phoenix had cleared the way. The tactical situation was shifting rapidly in favor of the surrounded SEALs, but Phoenix knew that the mission wouldn't be complete until Trident 7 was safely extracted from their precarious position. She maintained her aggressive attack pattern, using her F-22's superior speed and stealth capabilities to stay ahead of any remaining surface-to-air missile threats while systematically eliminating enemy positions. Phantom Lead, this is incredible shooting. How copy? Came Rodriguez's voice over the emergency frequency, his professional composure finally showing cracks as the immediate threat to his team began to diminish. Phoenix smiled slightly inside her oxygen mask, knowing that her precision strikes had given the SEALs a fighting chance. But she also knew that the mission was far from over, and that extraction would require continued air support until ground forces could reach Trident 7's position or helicopter evacuation became possible. Captain Williams began his strafing run at 4:02 hours, his A-10's distinctive sound echoing through the mountain valleys as the GAU-8 cannon unleashed a devastating stream of depleted uranium rounds onto the remaining Taliban positions. The aircraft's titanium, bathtub, cockpit provided protection against small arms fire, while allowing Williams to fly low and slow for maximum accuracy against ground targets. "Hammers hot, 30 seconds," Williams transmitted as his aircraft descended to attack altitude. Phoenix maintained overwatch position, ready to provide immediate support if her wingman encountered unexpected threats. Her radar screen showed no additional aircraft in the area, but she remained vigilant for any signs of enemy reinforcements or additional surface-to-air missile launches. The sound of the A-10's cannon was unmistakable, a deep, grinding roar that seemed to shake the mountains themselves. Each burst of fire sent tracers streaming toward Taliban positions, the depleted uranium rounds designed specifically to penetrate armor and fortified positions. Within minutes, the remaining enemy resistance began to crumble under the devastating attack. "Trident 7, enemy fire has ceased. I repeat, enemy fire has ceased," Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with relief and gratitude. "Phantom Lead and Hammer, you just saved 12 American lives tonight. Outstanding work, over." Colonel Vanguard felt the tension in the operations center finally begin to ease as reports continued to flow in from the battlefield. The immediate crisis was over, but the extraction of Trident 7 would still require careful coordination and continued air support until ground forces could establish a secure corridor to their position. Phantom Lead, Resolute Actual. Mission accomplished on the close air support. Can you provide overwatch for extraction operations? Weather is improving and we should have helicopter support available within the hour, over. Phoenix checked her fuel status and weapons load, calculating her remaining time on station. Her F-22 still had sufficient fuel for extended operations, and her remaining missiles could handle any additional threats that might emerge during the extraction phase of the mission. Resolute, Phantom Lead. Affirmative on overwatch. Fuel and weapons status allow for continued operations. Hammer and I will maintain combat air patrol over Trident 7 until extraction is complete, over. As dawn broke over the Afghan mountains, painting the rocky peaks in shades of gold and orange, Phoenix continued her protective circle above the SEAL team's position. The successful mission had demonstrated once again the critical importance of close air support in modern warfare. But more importantly, it had shown that when American warriors were in danger, help would always come, regardless of the odds or conditions. The extraction helicopters arrived at 4:47 hours, two A-60 Black Hawks flying low through the mountain valleys with their own escort of A-64 Apache gunships. Phoenix and Williams maintained their protective overwatch as the helicopters settled into the landing zone that the SEALs had secured using the tactical advantage provided by the earlier airstrikes. Phantom Lead, this is Dustoff 7-1. We have visual on your position and are beginning extraction operations. Thanks for clearing the way for us, over. Phoenix watched through her targeting systems as the 12 members of Trident 7 moved quickly, but carefully toward the waiting helicopters. Two stretchers carried the wounded operators who had been sustained by their teammates' courage and skill throughout the long night of combat. Master Chief Rodriguez was the last man to board, maintaining security until every member of his team was safely aboard the aircraft. Dustoff 7-1, Phantom Lead. Extraction appears successful. You're clear for departure. Safe flight home over. The Black Hawks lifted off smoothly, their rotors churning up clouds of dust and debris as they gained altitude, and began their return journey to the forward operating base. The Apache gunships provided escort, their pilots knowing that the enemy might attempt to target the helicopters during their vulnerable departure phase. Phoenix felt a profound sense of satisfaction as she watched the helicopters disappear into the morning sky. Another successful mission, another group of American warriors brought home safely. But she also knew that in a few hours, there would be another crisis somewhere else, another desperate call for help that would require the same level of skill, courage, and determination. Hammer Phoenix, mission complete. RTB when ready, she transmitted to her wingman using the military abbreviation for return to base. Copy Phoenix. Hell of a job tonight. Those SEALs owe you a beer when we get back, Williams responded, his A-10 forming up on Phoenix's wing for the flight back to their home base. As they climbed to cruising altitude and turned toward home, Phoenix reflected on the events of the past few hours. Combat flying required split-second decisions, absolute precision, and the ability to perform under extreme pressure. Tonight had been a textbook example of close air support done right, but she knew that success in combat was always temporary. There would always be another mission, another group of people in need of help. Colonel Vanguard watched the helicopters land at forward operating base Resolute, bringing home the 12 SEALs who had seemed certain to become casualties just hours earlier. As Master Chief Rodriguez stepped off the aircraft, still carrying his rifle and wearing the same tactical gear he had worn through the night-long firefight, the colonel approached to personally welcome the team home. Master Chief, glad to see you and your men made it back safely. How are the wounded? Vanguard asked, his voice carrying the relief that everyone at the base felt. Sir, both wounded are stable and being treated by the medical team. Sergeant Martinez took shrapnel to the shoulder, and Petty Officer Johnson has a leg wound, but both should make full recoveries. Colonel, I need to know who Phantom Lead and Hammer are. Those pilots saved our lives tonight, Rodriguez replied, his weathered face showing the strain of the extended combat operation. Vanguard realized that he had never received proper identification from the two pilots who had responded to his emergency call. In the chaos of the night's events, he had been focused entirely on the tactical situation rather than the administrative details of aircraft assignments and pilot identities. Master Chief, to be honest, I don't know who they were. They responded to our emergency call and conducted the mission without any formal tasking or authorization. I've never seen an F-22 and A-10 operating together in this area of operations, the colonel admitted, his curiosity now matching that of the SEAL team leader. Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully, understanding the unusual nature of the night's events. Sir, whoever they were, they knew their business. The precision of those strikes was incredible, and they took significant risks flying in those weather conditions. If there's a way to find out who they were, my team would like to thank them properly. As the medical team worked to treat the wounded SEALs, and the rest of the team underwent standard post-mission debriefing procedures, Colonel Vanguard returned to the operations center to begin the process of identifying the mysterious pilots who had appeared at exactly the right moment. The radio call signs Phantom Lead and Hammer were not in any of the current flight schedules or operational plans for his area of responsibility. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Martinez, the base operations officer, had been monitoring various communication frequencies throughout the night and had recorded all radio transmissions related to the rescue mission. As she reviewed the electronic logs and cross-referenced them with known aircraft positions, a picture began to emerge of the unusual circumstances surrounding the successful air support mission. Sir, I've been checking with regional air operations centers, and there's no record of any F-22 or A-10 aircraft being scheduled for operations in our sector last night. The weather conditions had grounded most air assets, and the aircraft that were available were all accounted for at other locations, she reported to Colonel Vanguard. The mystery deepened as additional inquiries were made through military communication networks. The successful rescue of Trident 7 was being reported up through command channels, but the identity of the pilots responsible remained unknown. It was as if Phantom Lead and Hammer had materialized from nowhere, conducted a perfect close air support mission, and then disappeared back into the vast expanse of Afghan airspace. Word of the successful rescue and the mysterious circumstances surrounding it began to spread throughout the military community in Afghanistan. Stories of unknown pilots appearing at critical moments were not entirely unprecedented, but the precision and skill displayed during the Trident 7 rescue was exceptional even by the standards of elite combat aviators. Major General Patricia Blackwood, commander of air operations for the entire Afghan theater, received a detailed briefing on the incident within 12 hours of its conclusion. Her experience managing complex air operations told her that such precision and coordination between different aircraft types required extensive training and exceptional skill levels. She immediately ordered a comprehensive investigation to identify the pilots involved. "I want to know who conducted that mission," General Blackwood told her staff during the morning briefing at Bagram Air Base. An F-22 and A-10 don't just randomly appear together for close air support missions. These pilots demonstrated extraordinary skill under dangerous conditions, and they deserve recognition for their actions. The investigation began with a review of all F-22 Raptor and Thunderbolt aircraft positions throughout Southwest Asia during the time period of the Trident 7 rescue. Flight logs, maintenance records, and pilot schedules were examined to determine which aircraft and crews could have been in position to respond to Colonel Vanguard's emergency call. Within 24 hours, the investigation had narrowed down to 2 possible aircraft, both operating from a classified location in the Persian Gulf region. The F-22 was assigned to the 1st Fighter Wing's 27th Fighter Squadron, piloted by Major Evelyn Phoenix Reeves, a combat veteran with over 2,000 flight hours and multiple combat deployments. The A-10 belonged to the 442nd Fighter Wing's 303rd Fighter Squadron, flown by Captain Jake Hammer Williams, a former enlisted aircraft maintainer who had earned his commission and pilot wings through exceptional performance and determination. Major Reeves' service record revealed a pilot of exceptional skill and courage, with a history of taking on high-risk missions and achieving outstanding results under pressure. Her call sign, Phoenix, had been earned during her first combat deployment when she had managed to return safely to base after her aircraft had been severely damaged by enemy fire, literally rising from the ashes of what should have been a fatal encounter. Captain Williams' background was equally impressive, though his path to the cockpit had been unconventional. As an enlisted aircraft maintainer, he had developed an intimate knowledge of the A-10 systems and capabilities before earning selection for officer candidate school and flight training. His call sign, Hammer, reflected his direct, no-nonsense approach to both flying and life, and his ability to deliver devastating precision strikes against ground targets. The investigation revealed that both pilots had been conducting a routine training mission when they had intercepted Colonel Vanguard's emergency transmission. Without hesitation or authorization from higher command, they had diverted from their planned training route and flown through marginal weather conditions to reach the embattled SEAL team. Their decision to act independently had saved 12 American lives, but it had also violated standard operating procedures regarding unauthorized mission changes and flight plan deviations. Major General Blackwood found herself facing a complex command decision. On one hand, Major Reeves and Captain Williams had clearly violated established protocols by conducting an unauthorized combat mission without proper clearance or coordination. On the other hand, their actions had resulted in a successful rescue that might not have been possible through normal command channels, given the time-sensitive nature of the emergency and the limited availability of other air assets. General, what they did was technically wrong according to regulations, but morally and tactically, it was absolutely right. Those 12 SEALs are alive today because two pilots were willing to risk their careers to help fellow Americans in danger, commented Colonel James Patterson, the general's chief of staff, during a private briefing on the investigation's findings. General Blackwood nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation. Military discipline required adherence to established procedures and command authority, but combat operations often demanded immediate action and independent decision-making. The challenge was balancing the need for good order and discipline with recognition of exceptional performance under extraordinary circumstances. Schedule a meeting with both pilots for tomorrow morning. I want to hear their side of the story before making any decisions about administrative action, the general ordered, knowing that her decision would set a precedent for how similar situations might be handled in the future. The meeting was scheduled for 800 hours the following day at Bagram Air Base, with both Major Reeves and Captain Williams ordered to report to General Blackwood's office for what their squadron commanders had described as a command interview regarding recent operational activities. Neither pilot knew exactly what to expect, but both understood that their unauthorized mission had attracted significant attention from senior leadership. Major Phoenix Reeves stood at attention in General Blackwood's office, her flight suit crisp and her demeanor professional despite the uncertainty surrounding the meeting. Captain Williams stood beside her, equally composed but clearly prepared for whatever consequences might result from their decision to divert from their training mission to assist the endangered SEAL team. General Blackwood studied both officers carefully, seeing in them the dedication and skill that had made the rescue of Trident 7 possible. Their service records spoke of consistent excellence and unwavering commitment to their fellow service members, but the question remained whether their unauthorized actions could be officially condoned without undermining military discipline and command structure. Major Reeves, Captain Williams, I've read the reports of your actions 3 nights ago. Before I make any decisions about potential administrative action, I want to hear directly from you what happened and why you chose to divert from your authorized training mission, the general said, her tone neutral but attentive. Phoenix stepped forward slightly, her voice clear and confident as she began to explain the events that had led to their unauthorized rescue mission. General, we were conducting routine training exercises when we intercepted an emergency transmission from Forward Operating Base Resolute. The transmission indicated that 12 SEALs were surrounded and in immediate danger, with no air support available due to weather conditions and aircraft maintenance issues. She paused briefly, gathering her thoughts before continuing. Ma'am, Captain Williams and I assessed the tactical situation and determined that we were in position to provide immediate assistance. We understood that we were deviating from our assigned mission, but the emergency nature of the situation and the immediate threat to American lives made the decision clear for both of us. Captain Williams nodded in agreement, adding, General, our training and our oath require us to protect American lives when possible. We had the capability to help, and the SEALs needed help immediately. Waiting for proper authorization through command channels would have meant those 12 men would likely have been killed or captured. General Blackwood listened carefully to their explanation, recognizing the moral clarity and tactical reasoning that had driven their decision. Their actions had been unauthorized, but they had also been necessary and successful. The challenge was how to handle the situation in a way that recognized their heroism while maintaining the importance of following proper procedures. Major Captain, I understand your reasoning, and I want you both to know that your actions saved American lives. The question I'm struggling with is how to balance recognition of your exceptional performance with the need to maintain discipline and proper command procedures, the general said, her tone showing the complexity of the command decision she faced. Phoenix met the general's gaze directly, her voice steady as she responded. "Ma'am, we understand that our actions were outside normal procedures, and we're prepared to accept any consequences. But given the same situation again, I would make the same decision. Sometimes doing the right thing requires accepting the risk of punishment." General Blackwood smiled slightly, recognizing in Major Reeves the kind of moral courage and commitment that exemplified the best traditions of military service. The decision she was about to make would reflect not only on these two pilots, but on the broader question of how the military balanced regulations with the imperative to protect American lives. "Major Reeves, Captain Williams, after careful consideration of all factors involved in this incident, I have decided that your actions, while technically unauthorized, were morally and tactically justified given the emergency circumstances. You will both receive official commendations for your exceptional performance under dangerous conditions, and your actions will be cited as an example of the initiative and courage expected from our combat aviators." The relief on both pilots' faces was evident, but General Blackwood continued with a more serious tone. "However, I also want you both to understand that this outcome should not be interpreted as blanket authorization for future deviations from assigned missions. Emergency situations require emergency responses, but the chain of command and proper procedures exist for important reasons. I expect both of you to continue demonstrating the same level of judgment and professionalism that you showed during the Trident 7 rescue." Both officers acknowledged the general's guidance, understanding that they had been given official recognition for their actions, while also being reminded of the importance of following proper procedures under normal circumstances. The meeting concluded with General Blackwood personally thanking them for their service and their willingness to risk everything to save their fellow Americans. Word of the general's decision spread quickly throughout the military aviation community, with Major Phoenix Reeves and Captain Hammer Williams becoming symbols of the courage and skill that defined American combat aviation. Their story was shared in pilot-ready rooms and officer clubs throughout the theater, inspiring other aviators and reinforcing the bonds of mutual support that held the military community together. Master Chief Rodriguez and the members of Trident 7 requested permission to visit the air base where Phoenix and Hammer were stationed, wanting to thank their rescuers in person. The meeting between the SEALs and the pilots was arranged as an informal gathering, allowing the men whose lives had been saved to express their gratitude directly to the aviators who had risked their own lives to help them. "Major Reeves, Captain Williams, on behalf of every member of Trident 7, I want you to know that we owe you our lives," Rodriguez said during the meeting, his voice carrying the weight of genuine emotion. "What you did that night, flying through those conditions to reach us, that's the kind of courage that defines what it means to be an American warrior." Phoenix felt a deep sense of satisfaction hearing those words, knowing that her decision to divert from the training mission had been vindicated not just by official recognition, but by the gratitude of the men she had helped save. "Master Chief, we just did what any pilot would have done in the same situation. You and your team showed incredible courage holding that position until we could reach you." The informal gathering became an opportunity for the SEALs and the pilots to share their perspectives on the night's events, building mutual respect and understanding between the different military communities that had come together during the crisis. Stories were exchanged about the tactical challenges, the split-second decisions, and the relief that everyone had felt when the extraction helicopters had safely departed with all 12 SEALs aboard. Captain Williams described the technical challenges of conducting close air support in marginal weather conditions, explaining how his A-10's capabilities had been perfectly suited for the precision strikes needed to neutralize enemy positions without endangering the surrounded friendly forces. Phoenix detailed the coordination required between dissimilar aircraft types and how their partnership had maximized the effectiveness of their combined attack. The meeting reinforced the bonds of mutual respect and support that connected all American military personnel, regardless of their specific branch of service or operational specialty. The SEALs understood the risks that the pilots had taken to reach them, and the pilots appreciated the courage and professionalism that had allowed the SEALs to survive until help could arrive. As news of the Trident 7 rescue continued to spread throughout the military community, it became a symbol of the dedication and sacrifice that defined American military service. The story was featured in military publications and briefings, serving as both an inspiration and a training example for other personnel facing similar challenging situations. Phoenix found herself receiving messages and letters from other female military personnel who saw in her story an example of how determination and skill could overcome the skepticism and prejudice that still existed in some quarters of the military. Her success as a combat pilot helped open doors for other women seeking to serve in similar roles, proving that capability and courage were not determined by gender. The legacy of the Trident 7 rescue extended beyond individual recognition to influence broader military policies regarding emergency response procedures and pilot authority during crisis situations. New guidelines were developed that provided clearer authority for pilots to respond to emergency situations when immediate action was required to save American lives, while still maintaining appropriate command oversight and coordination. Major General Blackwood used the incident as a case study in her discussions with other senior commanders, illustrating how effective military leadership required balancing adherence to regulation with the flexibility to respond appropriately to unexpected situations. The decision to commend rather than punish Major Reeves and Captain Williams became a model for how similar situations might be handled in the future. The story of Phoenix and Hammer became part of the oral tradition of American military aviation, told and retold in pilot training programs and officer development courses, as an example of the initiative and courage expected from combat aviators. Young pilots learn not just the technical aspects of close air support, but also the moral imperative to act decisively when American lives were in danger. Years after the Trident 7 rescue, Phoenix continued her military career with distinction, eventually being promoted to lieutenant colonel and assuming command of her own fighter squadron. Her reputation for exceptional skill and unwavering commitment to protecting fellow service members made her a respected leader and mentor for the next generation of combat pilots. Captain Williams also advanced in his career, eventually becoming a major and an instructor pilot responsible for training other A-10 pilots in close air support techniques. His experience during the Trident 7 rescue provided practical examples that he used to teach younger pilots about the importance of precision, coordination, and courage under fire. The 12 members of Trident 7 returned to operational status after recovering from their wounds and completing post-mission debriefing and analysis procedures. Their experience during the night-long firefight and subsequent rescue became part of their unit's institutional knowledge, providing lessons learned that would benefit other SEAL teams facing similar tactical challenges. Master Chief Rodriguez was eventually promoted to Senior Chief Petty Officer and assigned to train other Special Operations personnel in small unit tactics and survival techniques. His leadership during the crisis at Grid November 7 4 Alpha became a textbook example of how experienced non-commissioned officers could maintain unit cohesion and effectiveness even under the most desperate circumstances. The forward operating base, where Colonel Vanguard commanded, continued its mission of supporting special operations throughout Afghanistan, with improved communication procedures and enhanced coordination with air assets resulting from lessons learned during the Trident 7 incident. The colonel's decision to continue calling for air support despite repeated failures had ultimately led to the successful rescue, demonstrating the importance of persistence and faith in fellow service members. The broader impact of the rescue extended beyond individual careers and unit policies to influence public perception of American military capabilities and commitment. News of the successful rescue, while classified in its operational details, contributed to public confidence in the military's ability to protect American personnel serving in dangerous locations around the world. Military families found comfort in stories like the Trident 7 rescue, knowing that if their loved ones were ever in similar danger, there would always be other service members willing to risk everything to help them. The bonds of mutual support and sacrifice that held the military community together were exemplified by the courage and skill displayed by Phoenix, Hammer, and all the others who had contributed to the successful mission. The technical lessons learned from the rescue were incorporated into training programs and operational procedures throughout the military aviation community. The successful coordination between an F-22 stealth fighter and an A-10 attack aircraft provided valuable insights into how different platforms could work together effectively during complex combat operations. Advanced flight training programs began including scenarios based on the Trident 7 rescue, teaching student pilots about the challenges of conducting close air support in marginal weather conditions with friendly forces in immediate danger. The precision required for danger-close missions became a standard part of pilot training, with Phoenix's techniques being studied and emulated by other aviators. The story of the rescue also influenced military procurement and development decisions, demonstrating the continued relevance of both high-technology stealth aircraft like the F-22 and proven close support platforms like the A-10. The complementary capabilities of these different aircraft types proved that modern military aviation required diversity in platforms and capabilities rather than reliance on any single solution. As Phoenix reflected on her career and the impact of that night,